I think there's all sorts of things going on in his mind with this, but it's a lovely, lovely piece. And then we have this sort of competition scene because they're trying to impress these women. So we have 3 solos. One is all bravura. So on like that, and it goes on like that the whole way through. There's just lots of pyrotechnics for the man in that solo. And then the second solo is done by the same sailor as the pas de deux sailor. So this is a little bit more seductive. It's called a waltz, but it has a sort of hiccup in it. So it's not exactly a waltz. That's his style. Very, very, it's a lovely piece. I love that piece. Now the third variation was the one that Robbins was one of the sailors. He actually played one of the sailors. And this is his variation. And this is based on a Cuban dansson, which we're going to be very clever and link to Mr. Bach shortly. But so this is that music. So on and so forth. There's no doubt about that, the Latin influence of that music. So then, after that, there's a big fight. And they end up with neither. The girls have had too much of this, and they just leave. So the guys are, so there's this music that actually my colleague Charles Barker, is here conducting, and will actually be conducting the first performance of this. So there's this music that is like or shucks music. So it's so they're pretty disappointed. However, they're not disappointed for long. Before right at the end of the ballet, you get this music, and there's a third woman appears, younger than the other two, and they're completely transfixed by this. That's suggestive, very suggestive music. And at the end of the ballet, she goes off and they run off after her, and that's the end of the ballet. Very simple ballet, but it's absolutely wonderful.
It's such a contemporary piece too for Bernstein and for Robbins.
And it never seems to age.
Time, a story of their time.
Yes, yes, absolutely, and it never seems to age, and it's still the same design from the 1944, and it just looks as fresh as it did, I think. As it must have looked in 1944, and daring as it was for a ballet.
I think we better invite our special guest on.
We better, because, yes. So we're doing, one of the other ballets is the Scarlatti. The interesting thing is the Scarlatti was born the same year as Bach.
And died the same year, I think.
1685.
Yes, 1750-ish, yes.
And I'm not going to play any Scarlatti sonatas. I'll leave that up to our wonderful company pianist,
Very
Barbara,
few
who
people
you'll
can,
hear.
Ormsby.
Pardon?
There are very few people can. There are over 500 of them.
There are 555 of them.
Yes.
There are 7 in this ballet, and I think it's just a wonderful piece. It's basic. On the surface, it's an abstract piece, but in fact, Alexei Ratmansky always finds something very interesting in the music, and actually I think it's and the dancers are like a little community, and you see various relationships develop, and how this works out how he works it out is fascinating.
There's also an interesting Spanish link with Scarlatti being appointed at the Spanish court.
That's right.
So he would have been influenced by some of those rhythms you were playing here
Yes.
in the 1940s, that's seen
That's
as
right.
Cuban dance rhythms.
That's right.
But as we're going to hear in a moment, we welcome Charles on.
So the other piece is the Bach partita, which is Trois La Femme, and it's to the second partita of Bach, with the great chaconne. And it just so happens we have Charles Young, we've brought over from the stage to play this for us.
He's
So
the
Charles-
orchestra.
And he's the orchestra for this. So Charles, why don't you
Charles.
come and join us?
So, Charles, you're standing
Underdressed?
there. Yes, you're
Yeah.
Underdressed.
underdressed. You're playing all the 7 movements on this partita, is that right?
You
More.
got the Allemande, you got the Courante, you got the Sarabande,
Sarabande,
the Gigue, and then the Chaconne, so 5 total.
Yeah.
5 all in total.
the-
And they're all dance inspired.
They're all dance inspired. Like the Gigue, very much so. It's kind of like a jig.
Could you give us a demonstration of the jig? Just
The Gigue is a. No, I'm kidding. No.
Close.
And so forth.
Yeah.
And
That's the
wonderful.
Gigue.
How about the sarabande? It's much
The
more
Sarabande
stately.
is the dance in 3, a slow,
Yes.
slow 3. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Very free. That's it.
Oh, yeah,
Wonderful.
that's,
Beautiful.
One of the gorgeous movements. And then, you know the Allemande that starts the whole thing. The Courante. And then-
So as Twilight Fab's piece and dance. what
So
can you
then,
tell
of
us?
course, the last movement is probably longer than all the other 4 movements.
Yeah, so
Combined,
actually,
right.
all 4 movements combined is the same length as the last movement,
Right.
which is the Chaconne.
It's one of the glories of the entire
And
rock
this is
record.
one
yeah.
of the,
It's
you
the
know,
best.
these partitas, of course, are to violinists are like the preludes and fugues are to pianists.
Exactly.
Pianists, right?
The
They're-
partitas and sonatas
Yes,
are.
I mean, you aren't a violinist unless you learn them and know them.
Exactly.
And they're very challenging works, they're very beautiful works, but they teach you so much about music
Sure.
and life, don't
Yeah,
they?
oh
Really,
yeah.
you know,
It's
I think-
it's our Bible, pretty much.
That's- exactly.
They're so
violin
good,
is-
pianists stolen.
and
I know. Well, you guys have a great version for
Yes,
piano.
Brahms and Busoni.
Brahms was a transcription, and
Yes.
Busoni
yeah,
reharmonized it. It was
Yeah.
beautiful.
yes. Well, he was always doing that to Bach.
Yeah.
There's lots of Busoni.
That's true.
Challenges for you, playing in a large theatre. You're standing there in the pit of this performance, is that right, Ormsby? You're not on stage? You're on
Yeah.
stage?
Yes, he's in the
Yes.
he's in the pit.
I'm in the pit. I'm in a raised platform, facing the stage.
So-
And he's a very modern violinist because he's using an iPad for the music.
Sorry, it's an Android device now.
Oh, excuse me. Excuse me.
More modern. No, I love iPad. For
When he doesn't really need it, but it just when you're accompanying a ballet, I mean, I think that
It's smart
there's that
to have
extra. Well, no, it's smart to have it because you know that there are other people relying on what you're
Right.
doing, so you want to always make sure that. Well, I mean, what was it like? What did you think? What was it like working with Twyla, or trying to play this piece that you knew from when you were
Well,
a
this-
kid, and then suddenly have to play it for ballet?
Right, the D minor partita, like we were saying, is something that all violinists know, and I've been playing it since I was a child, and when I got the call to do this, actually Ormsby was one of the people that called me and said, Charles, you got to do this and this and like that. It's a terrible accent. But he was saying I had to play, would you like to try this out? Would you like to play Bach with ABT? And I said, yeah, sure. He said, but the catch is Twyla Tharp did it back in the 1980s with the Heifetz recording, which is Jascha Heifetz had recorded all the Bach, but very differently than most violinists perform it. And that was the catch. And I said, yeah, I'll figure it out. But I remember I had to audition for Twyla, and I had to make sure that I played it the way Heifetz did,
But I want to add where he says that, but it actually, even though the tempi have to be pretty close to what they were used to, Charles brings his own personality to the playing. So it's certainly not a carbon copy of
right. Well, no one
Heifetz
can be
at all.
Heifetz.
Well, no one can be Heifetz, but even so, I think
Right.
that's remarkable because
Well,
you could have just done a straight copy, but
that's interesting though, because during one of the rehearsals in New York, I wanted to try it my way. I'm like, oh, Twyla, she's not even going to notice if I did this, But so I did it my way, and there's a section in Bach in the chaconne where a lot of violinists play the. And so forth. And Heifetz plays it. And so forth. That version to me, at the time, I was like, oh, I didn't care for it so much. So I tried my version. And then I realized visually, Twyla noticed right away, first of all, and she said, excuse me, that's not what I heard you for. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. So I did it her way. And I realized that the company is jumping there. It makes sense. Everything makes sense in the glorious Twyla mind, Everything was planned out, So from then on, I was like, okay, I'm at your command.
Well, now, why don't you just play a section of the chaconne for us?